Good evening, and welcome once again to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And tonight in the Shadow Gallery, we're going to be doing another movie review. And this time, it is not a huge summer tentpole release. It is not a huge budget extravaganza. It is but a very important film nonetheless, as far as to me, and I think to a lot of you out there, well, some of you out there, and that is the 2012, because it was made and initially released in 2012, at least as far as the festival circuit was concerned, but did not make it into theaters until a couple of weeks ago, and that is the micro-budgeted 2012 production of Much Ado About Nothing, directed by Joss Whedon, or I would call the subtitle of this film What Joss Whedon and His Friends Like to Do at Home, is to get drunk and read Shakespeare. So we have here the story. If you are not familiar with it, I'll run it down for you. A group of heroes, if you will, soldiers, come back from war abroad back to their home in Messina, for much celebration and wooing of women and so on and so forth. And the two main players in this piece are the characters of Benedict and Beatrice. Benedict is played by none other than Alexis Denisof, who you, of course, will remember from just about everything that Joss Whedon has ever done. He was, of course, introduced to Whedon fans in Buffy the Vampire Slayer as the character of Watcher Wesley Wyndham-Pryce, who then later came back after his departure from that show, later came back to reprise that role on the series Angel, first as Rogue Demon Hunter and then just as overall fucking badass, and is easily my favorite of all of the Whedonverse characters. As far as his arc is concerned, he is second to none, that character. But also appeared as Senator Daniel Perrin in the television show Dollhouse, at least in the second season, anyway. And Beatrice is played by the lovely Amy Acker, who you, of course, will also remember from Angel as Winifred / Fred Burkle. Or I should say, quote-unquote, Fred Burkle, / Illyria, who ironically was, of course, Wesley's great love in that show. She also appeared in Dollhouse as well as a recurring character, whose name escapes me right now. But I think her designation was Whiskey. And then also appeared in Cabin in the Woods. God damn it. And more recently has appeared in shows like Person of Interest. She's all over the place. She's a great talent, a great actress, and a great beauty. Anyway, so Benedict and Beatrice are almost eternally at odds with one another. Essentially, Benedict plans to live out his life as a bachelor. He does not love women. He loves women, but doesn't love them. So he is content to remain a bachelor and to be unmarried, and the same goes for Beatrice. Now, this, of course, set in the modern day, they're no longer soldiers. They are soldiers of a type, but it seems to be of a corporate structure. And and almost like corporate raiders, if you will, or just, great, big, important businessmen. The leader of which is Don Pedro, who is played by Reed Diamond, who also you may remember from Dollhouse. You also may remember him from the final season of 24. The show Journeyman, which was only on for I don't know, maybe 13 episodes at most. Anyway, and Benedict's kind of new best friend is Claudio, who is played by Fran Kranz, who you also remember from Dollhouse, and also more recently, and I think just as importantly, as Marty in, again, Cabin in the Woods. And they come to the home of Leonardo, who's played by Clark Gregg, who, of course, just from knowing, because you've seen the Avengers, you know who Agent Phil Coulson is. And, if you've even seen just about any of the other Marvel films, you will know who Agent Coulson is. Leonardo's kind of home is where they've come to kind of take their peace and just kind of relax and chill and do whatever they need to do to kind of get it all out of the system. Also coming with them is Don Pedro's bastard brother, Don John, played by Sean Marr, who of course you'll remember from Firefly, as Dr. Simon Tam. And back at home, we have Beatrice and her cousin Hero, who is played by newcomer Jillian Morgase, excuse me. And upon returning home, once Claudio and Hero fall in love and are betrothed to one another at the behest of Clark Gregg, who is Hero's father and uncle to Beatrice. And so basically these two sides, without the knowledge of Benedict or Beatrice, plan to make Beatrice and Benedict fall in love with each other without them even knowing it. So we have a kind of battle of the sexes, a comedy of the sexes, a comedy about love, and then you also have the villainous Don John, who is looking to undo all the happiness that will come from the union of Claudio and Hero. And then you have the good constable Dogberry, who is played by none other than Nathan Fillion. And if you don't know who he is, then you deserve a slap to the face, because I'm not going to go into that. And he becomes not part of this plot, but actually kind of the discoverer of it, if you will. And so basically what we have here is, like I said, it's a comedy about love that has some serious moments, that has some uncomfortable moments, certainly, but ultimately is a comedy, and in the hands of Joss Whedon and his amazing pool of talent that he works with in this film, it is pretty much flawless. It is a beautifully played film. There is nary a false note that any actor, I mean, even the lesser ones from, some of the people that I did not know, there's an interesting kind of sex switcheroo in regards to the character of Conrad, who's not a man, but is actually a woman. Kind of the Gal Friday of Don John, played by Ricky Lindholm, who is quite beautiful, very sexy, very sexy. You have Spencer Treat Clark, who we haven't seen in a while. Of course, coming from kind of his child kind of pseudo-star status, being in films like Gladiator and Unbreakable, and then finally seeing him again in something was very nice, as he plays Baraccio, who is actually another one of Don John's lackeys. You also have Tom Lank, who plays Burgess, who is actually the kind of right-hand man to Dogberry. And the chemistry between Fillion and Lank in this film is so perfect. And the way that they play their character. I mean, the modernization of this film is a point of contestation for Shakespearean purists. Obviously, there's another film out there, another film version of this out there, which was Kenneth Branagh's version, which is also quite good. It's very, very good. It's played very well. It does have one really standoutish performance as being not quite up to snuff, and that, of course, is the performance of Keanu Reeves as Don John. I appreciate Keanu Reeves' work ethic, but he's not a very good actor, and he's certainly not a good Shakespearean actor. Now, like I said, the reason that I subtitle this film What Joss Whedon and His Friends Like to Do on Their Weekends as far as getting drunk and reading Shakespeare is because this is something that has been going on with Joss and his friends for years. This is something that they like to do together, is they like to sit together and they like to read Shakespeare and like to perform different roles. I know this sounds very highfalutin, it's very hoity-toity and very artsy to a lot of people who follow, who like Joss, or just kind of, I won't say, kind of like fair weather fans, if you will. People that don't love him, but like him. I love Joss Whedon, and that has obviously been proven time and time again with me, just, slathering much love on the man. Obviously, I think that, the weakest thing that he ever did was his work on the comic book Runaways. But that's, to me, it's kind of an oversight. Because there's enough good stuff that came before that by Brian K. Vaughan that really almost stands on its own. There doesn't even need to be any more Runaways after he left the book. So, anyway, what really it boils down to here is the performances. Now, a lot of people are scared of Shakespeare, and I understand why. I brought Kat to see this. She would normally be doing this review with me, but to be perfectly honest, there's not a whole lot to kind of banter back and forth as we normally do about this film, because it's relatively, like I said, it's a relatively straightforward film, aside from the fact that it's based on Shakespeare, or that it's a Shakespearean play, I should say. But she, who is not a student of Shakespeare, I took a lot of Shakespeare in high school and post-high school. I have the complete works. I enjoy reading them. But sometimes, even, stuff does fly over my head. But it is really in the performance is where you're going to either get or not get Shakespeare. It's very hard to teach Shakespeare without actors present to show you what Shakespeare can really do. Because just words on a page, as far as reading a play, not always the best thing to do, but, it can work. I mean, obviously you can read it and you can see, okay, well, this is what's going on here and that's what's going on there. But obviously with Shakespeare, there's almost always going to be an incredible amount of subtext in his language. With rhyming couplets and the dreaded iambic pentameter, this is something that scares a lot of people away from seeing films that are, in Shakespearean language. But when you have a group of actors like this, like Denisov, like Acker, like Clark Gregg, like Reed Diamond, like Frank Kranz, like Sean Marr, like Nathan Fillion, I mean, all Jillian Morgase, um, and with someone who has such an understanding of it, like Joss Whedon, more than likely you're going to get something really, really special. Now, this, of course, I'm sure you've heard the stories about it. This was shot just almost after the Avengers finished post production. It was shot in, I think, 16 days for, like I said, a micro budget. There's no, I mean, there are known actors in this film, to be certain, but they're all friends of Joss's, so I'm sure that he was able to get away with paying them scale. And this was entirely shot at his home and on his property in Santa Monica. And so you're able to get away with a lot more. And, he wrote the score to the film. The songs that appear in the film that they're Shakespearean, they're songs that actually appear in the original text. They are arranged and performed by his brother Jed and his wife Marissa Tancarone, who of course is going to be one of the leads as far as as far as staff is concerned on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We've seen her in other stuff, and she actually has quite a lovely singing voice as well, which we do get to hear. And it's just, first of all, it is an absolute joy to see Denisov play such broad comedy, because we're used to him being very serious in what we've seen him in, as far as, being in, when he was on Angel, there was very little comedy that man played, because he was more of kind of this, almost a tragic figure after a certain point. But when he did play the broad comedy stuff, which was much more in his Buffy days and in the early parts of Angel, he is a joy to watch playing broad comedy, because he has impeccable comic timing, especially when it comes to physical comedy. And in this film, he really gets to shine as far as that's concerned. And surprisingly, so does Amy Acker. Amy Acker also has brilliant comic timing. She, does play physical comedy very, very well, quite broadly. Everybody's just a fucking treat. I mean, it is, Reed Diamond, I mean, I never would have honestly thought that the guy had it in him, because he usually plays kind of very stock characters. Fran Kranz, he's a genius actor. We've all seen him play, when he played Topher on Dollhouse, he was pretty much kind of the standout, at least to me. And seeing him, of course, play Marty in Cabin in the Woods was just, he's an amazing actor. Jillian Morgase as playing Hero, she's quite lovely. She's extremely talented. Fillion and Lank, again, I mean, their scenes are so awesome. Everybody on this film is right in it from beginning to end. I liked the way that they modernized things, but not so modern that it seems to strip away some of what we see as far as what we hear in the film. Now, there's some new context that is brought to this film that was a little bit, that was slightly controversial, in that the fact that there was at least one point in time where Benedict and Beatrice were, not going out, they slept together at least once. And this, I think, was probably inserted to give more context to the relationship they have, the adversarial relationship they have to one another. But how, basically how, Whedon uses his house, uses his grounds, uses this very limited space to create this, what seems to be a larger, not world, but I mean, certainly there are, like more areas that these people are, in, around, so on and so forth. Uh, I mean, the film is just sheer joy to watch. It is, like I said, there are only moments where, I mean, the film, as far as photographed, I mean, it's filmed digitally in black and white, and it looks nice and crisp, but I mean, there's nothing to really speak of as far as extraordinary shot composition or anything like that. Like I said, it's a very straightforward. It's I hesitate to use the term home movie, but because it does look better than that. I mean, it looks significantly better than that because Joss Whedon is a really good director and a very good visual director as well. But you get the sense that he was just trying to kind of relax and let the actors tell the story through dialogue, through movement, and not so much through big broad camera movements or really exquisite depth of field shots or anything like that. He just really just let the film, or let the story play. So from a directorial standpoint, obviously, directing the actors is part of the director's job, and which he did a brilliant job. But from a visual standpoint, there's not really much to take home. The joy of this film comes from the actors' performances, listening to the language, and like I said, I mean, it's an absolute joy. It is probably, it's if it's not the best film of the summer, it's very close. It's just because it is so incredibly entertaining, and you'll be hard pressed to find a film that you will laugh more at this year than Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing. This is very much a 4.5, close to 5 out of 5 for Joss Whedon's production of Much Ado About Nothing. I want to give a big shout out to Lionsgate for wisely buying the property to this film to distribute it. The reason it took so long for me to see is because I wanted to see an opening weekend, but it was only playing at one theater in the Phoenix area, and it's hard to get to that theater. So then I was going to go see it the next weekend, and I was sick. But then last weekend, the stars aligned, and lo and behold, we were able to see it. Kat, if she were here, could tell you that once she kind of got over the initial kind of hesitance, or I shouldn't say hesitance, but kind of a fear of overcoming the dialogue, she latched onto it immediately and found it just as charming as I did. And that's really what this film is. This film is incredibly entertaining. It's incredibly charming. It's very, very, very well acted. The standout, usually, I think by most people's summation, would probably be Nathan Fillion, just because of the kind of character that he plays. I mean, being kind of an idiot, and him playing that kind of, playing this kind of idiot role, even though he's not an idiot, he thinks that he's smarter than he actually is. And instinctually, he's, I'm sure, quite intelligent, but certainly from a vocal and just a personality-wise, he's an idiot. But I mean, to me, the real joy was seeing Alexis Denisof really, really play this role to the hilt. I mean, the role of Benedict is one of the great Shakespearean roles, in my opinion, as far as comedy is concerned. And he just nails that fucker. And so it's a joy to see Alexis Denisof in anything, because I've seen Amy Acker a lot. I mean, which is not to discount her work. I've seen Clark Gregg a lot. I've seen, a lot of these people in other stuff. And Alexis Denisof, not so much. So it's always a joy to see him, and seeing him in this film is just like I said, it's a flawless performance, and I'm sure will be utterly forgotten when it comes to any kind of awards time, but that's just the way it goes. So that's my review of Much Ado About Nothing. Like I said, it is a 4.5, verging on a 5. It is, like I said, if it weren't for kind of the more visual aspects of the film, this would easily be a 5 out of 5 and probably be, hands down the best film of the summer. But that title still is held by Star Trek Into Darkness, as far as I'm concerned. So we'll leave it off there. Thank you for watching. If this is your first time here, subscribe. Yes, these movie reviews do tend to go on this long. Don't forget to check out my recent reviews, my solo reviews, or my solo review of Pacific Rim, that will also be available to see almost immediately as this one is up. And don't forget to see some of my more recent ones, the Cat and Husband reviews, in which you will see us review Iron Man 3, Star Trek Into Darkness, and Man of Steel. So, hope you've enjoyed this. I know that I have. And I hope you come back soon. And I hope I come back soon as well. So, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. So long.